Good morning, grade 5s, and welcome to our NST lesson. Our last lesson was on processing materials. Today we are going to be looking at combining materials. Before we continue with the lesson, I am going to define a few terms that we are likely to encounter in the process of the lesson. Combine is to mix, add, or join together. Ingredients. This is a list of raw materials that are selected to go into a mixture. Processed means changed in different ways to get new materials or new products with new properties. So if you process something, you are changing it in such a way that the new product that is formed has got new properties. Product. This is something new and useful coming out of the process. So a product is the outcome. You have your raw material, you process it, then you get a product or you get an outcome. And this is a new useful thing that you can use. Mixture. This is something that is made by mixing things up. Cement is a product made from clay and limestone that becomes hard when mixed with water. Concrete, a mixture of sand, gravel, cement, and water. So when we combine materials, what are we doing? When we combine materials, we're putting things together and then coming up with a new product. So combining materials is putting things together so that we come up with a new product which has got new properties or new characteristics. And this product is often different from the original products that we used. So this is a situation where you put your raw materials together, process them, and then come up with a new product. At times it is difficult to find material with the required properties. So you look around and you see that you don't have the required properties, the properties that you need in a particular item. So what you do is you need to combine a few raw materials, process them, and then a new item is formed. And this new item will have the properties that you require. Alright? This combination of materials produces a new type of material or product. For example, look at this list of ingredients. Remember, we said the ingredients are those things that you need to combine in order to come up with a new product. So you have your flour, your yeast, your sugar, your salt, and water. If you combine these and then you bake them and introduce some heat to the dough after combining them, or introduce heat to the mixture, then you come up with a product, and your product is bread. Alright? How materials can be changed or processed? Materials can be changed by heating. Okay? So you put your ingredients together, then you introduce some heat to whatever you are doing, and you come up with a new product. This is what happens most of the times in the kitchen. We are mixing ingredients all the time, and then we introduce a bit of heat, and then a new product is formed. For example, if you want to make your pap, you have your mealie meal. You put your mealie meal together with water. That is a mixture, okay? And in order for that mixture to become pap, you've got to introduce some heating, okay? So you put it on the stove and you heat it, and then you have your outcome as your pap. All right. Then drying is another way of changing your material from one item into another, okay? And then you also have cooling. Cooling also changes material or changes material from one to another. So when you cool, you actually introduce certain properties to the raw materials. Alright, the process of heating, drying, and cooling make the product more suitable for use than the original material. So we're going to look at ways of combining materials. Materials can be processed into new materials or products by mixing. Just mixing two items, you can actually come up with a new product. You can, at times, mixing and setting will give you a new product. At times you've got to mix and you've got to cool. And at times you have to mix and cook. At times you have to mix and dry and or fire. Okay, so you can mix and dry and stop there, or you can mix, dry and fire. Alright, and I'm going to deal with these separately in separate lessons. But let's move on with today's work. So materials can be processed into new materials or products by mixing. So when you mix items, alright, you come up with a new product. Look at this bowl of fruit salad. We had different kinds of fruits that have been cut and mixed together, and we come up with this mixture. So that is one way of combining materials. You can also combine materials by mixing and cooling. Remember, when you make your jelly, you've got that powder that requires you to have like a cup of hot water. You mix and dissolve the powder, and then you also add a cup of cold water, and then you have this mixture that is warm, and then you put that mixture in the fridge. So what you're doing effectively is you are mixing first of all. When you put your powder in water and it dissolves in water, you continue stirring and mixing, and then after that you have to cool the mixture. You put it in the fridge and your jelly forms. Alright, then we can also mix and set. So like your cement, for example, you buy a bag of cement, you need to add some water to that ingredient so that it becomes porridge like. And then you take that mixture before it dries and you put it where it's supposed to be. And then look at this picture here. He has mixed the cement, and then I think he's making a floor there. So he goes and puts the mixture into the area where he wants the floor to be, and then he smoothens it out so that at least it looks like a floor. Then you have to leave it like that for some time in order for the cement to set. Then we've got mixing and cooking. This is what happens most of the times in the kitchen. So you mix your ingredients, then you cook them, and then you have an outcome like that. And then at times you need to mix, dry, and fire. Alright, so when you are mixing, you can take your clay, mix your clay with water, which is what is happening here. So they are mixing the product and then shaping that into an item. Then after some time, when it's done, you have to put it out in the sun to dry. So it dries, there's your mixing and your drying. If you want this product to be very strong, then you need to fire it. When you fire it, you're putting it in fire for some time, it gains different properties. So this is how you mix, dry, and fire, which is one way of combining materials and then coming up with a new product which has totally different characteristics. So your bricks and your ceramics go through this process here, where you mix, you shape it into whatever you want to do, and then you let them dry, and then you put them into the fire. So these are ways of combining materials, different ways of combining materials, and I'm going to be taking them step by step and going into detail next time when I do my other lessons. So for today, we are going to do a simple activity But before we do the activity, I want you to go to page 86 in your textbook. Use the information and then use the information supplied below to do the activity. So on page 86, what you're merely doing is you're just reading that page. So read that page, which is basically what I've been talking about. And then once you're done with that page, we are going to use this information here, which I have supplied, to do activity 1. All right. And you are going to need a few materials. And I've tried to do an activity that is not complicated so that you are able to go to the kitchen and find these. We need flour, we need water, we need a bowl for mixing, and then you can just get old newspapers and rip the newspaper into pieces. All right. Then the method. What do we need to do? The instructions. We want to make sticky glue paste using flour and water. So first of all, look at before you mix your ingredients, I want you to look at the properties of flour and water before you mix them. Okay? Just look at them, use your senses. What are the properties? What does flour look like? What does flour feel like? Okay? So use your senses there to help you describe the properties of flour and water. And then the next step is now mix flour and water to make a sticky paste, and then take your pieces of paper. That's your next step. See if you can stick the pieces of paper together using the glue you have just made. Then once you're done with that, I want you to answer the questions below based on your experiment. So based on this experiment, you've put flour and you've put your water, you've created this sticky paste, and then you've taken your papers that you've ripped from the newspaper, and then you try and stick them together. Okay, so after doing that, answer the following questions. What did the flour feel like before it was mixed with water? How did it feel like before you mixed the flour with water? Then the next one, describe the properties of water. What are the properties of water? All right. And then number 3, describe the properties of the paste after you have mixed the 2 ingredients. When you put your flour and water and you mix the 2, you came up with this paste. How does it feel like? What are the properties? Use your senses as well, okay, to come up with the answer for that. Do you remember 3 states of matter? Yes, I think we still remember the 3 states of matter from grade 4 and from our previous lessons. What state of matter is the flour? Okay, and what state of matter is the water? Then the last part, what state of matter would you say the paste is? Okay, so answer those questions. They are not very difficult. You are just using information from the little experiment that you've done there to answer the following questions. That shouldn't take you long. I hope you understand the different ways of combining materials and how we come up with different products because of the properties that we require in order for us to carry out our day-to-day duties. I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day. Goodbye.